Howdy folks, and welcome back. It's spooky season, and I have a burning question for you. What's worse than someone entering your home, beating you, dumping dog urine on you while they whisper in your ear that Santa isn't real? That's right, an incredibly mid-game that is so incredibly boring you wish the beating would continue just so you could feel anything. Of course, today I'm talking about and obtaining the platinum for Gotham Knights, the much worse and lazier cousin to the Arkham trilogy. Though keep in mind, this doesn't actually take place in the Arkham universe because Suicide Squad decided that it was going to take that and just... I have no words for that game. But man, do I wish I was doing the Arkham trilogy instead. See, Gotham Knights came out a few years ago, and as a Batman fan, let me tell you, I was excited. I knew we were going to be dealing with the Court of Owls, and I was so ready to see how they were going to do the story, and just... it was so bad. At every turn, they did the most boring, safe, cookie-cutter choice, and I'll explain why later. We'll get into it. But we gotta continue. Gotham Knights has 49 trophies total, so let's throw that number up here on the board and begin with what to date has been the most boring game I've ever completed. To the game's credit, it does actually start out mildly interesting. The opening cinematic is Bruce Wayne's Batman fighting Ra's al Ghul, the head of the League of Assassins. It's a pretty well done scene, and it actually ends with the death of both Ra's and Bruce Wayne as Bruce blows up the Batcave and Wayne Manor. We then cut to Batgirl, Nightwing, Robin, and Red Hood arriving on scene only to discover the death of Bruce. These are the 4 playable characters throughout the whole game. We then cut to a funeral where the 4, along with Alfred and several others, are in attendance for Bruce's funeral, where Jacob Kane, Bruce's uncle, is giving a eulogy speech. Finally, we actually get to go and play the game by following up on the last case Batman was working on, which leads us to Gotham University and looking for Professor Kirk Langstrom.
Kirk Langstrom. The half-finished file was attached to Batman's Code Black. There's something big there.
This location serves as the tutorial for combat abilities and the investigation techniques of the game. But for story purposes, we find Langstrom's lab, and more specifically, we find where he was killed. And when we find his secret lab within his normal lab, where there are a bunch of weird experiments being done, and a hard drive which we take. Everyone then reconvenes at an old hideout, the Belfry, where Batgirl used to work out of when she was Oracle, and this will be our new base of operations. Finally, we also receive our very first trophy, First Step into the Night, for unlocking our first ability point. We're now finally on the board, so let's get her moving. The game has 2 phases, day and night. Day lets you upgrade your gear and progress certain story elements, but the majority of the game is at night on patrol. While you're on patrol, you'll have a certain amount of premeditated crimes denoted by red and orange triangles on your map. You get more premeditated crimes the more crimes you stopped the night before by picking up red magnifying glasses that drop on the ground from defeated enemies. In any case, though, when you complete all premeditated crimes in one night, you're awarded with the Not On My Watch trophy. Our next trophy comes pretty quickly with Red Hood, aka Jason Todd, and it's Knighthood. This requires that you complete a few easy challenges to unlock a new upgrade tree as well as a new mobility ability. Say that 10 times fast. Each character has their own ability, and you'll want to do this for each of the characters, but for the trophy, you'll only need to do this once. Next up, Harley Quinn contacted us, assuming Batman was still alive. Or something along that line. It's Harley Quinn. Who knows what goes on in that incredibly intelligent and batshit crazy brain of hers. Anyways, Batman had asked her to look into a few criminal masterminds, or something along those lines. Long story short, Harley finished her research, broke out of Blackgate, but did actually deliver on her promise, and gave us a scrapbook of all that said research. I mean, we did have to fight an entire basic prison breakout, but hey, we still got what we needed. Though it's not incredibly useful. But, I said but. Anyway, we do get the trophy, har har har, very funny, for finishing the mission. Don't worry, we'll throw Harley back into Blackgate, just not right now. And actually, with that completed and a quick cutscene, we earn another trophy, Loose Ends, for completing case file number 1, Batman's Last Case. This is a story-based trophy, just as a heads up. The Batman Family Trophy is incredibly simple. All you have to do is equip each of the 4 characters at least once. It really is that simple, guys. Our next trophy is Get Wrecked, or Get Requeued, I don't know, it's one of the two. So, in Gotham Knights, you'll come across a few villains in Batman's rogue gallery. The first is, of course, Harley Quinn. Upon her escape from prison, she takes on the name Dr. Q, who appears to be dealing with the Freaks group and stealing a bunch of medicine and medical equipment. Anyways, this can't be a good thing, but the trophy pops once you've finished the first stage of the investigation. Our next villain we run into is Mr. Freeze. We find him inside Star Labs, stealing a bucket load of cryogel. We go through Star Labs looking for him until he traps a bunch of scientists inside a room and cuts off the oxygen supply. Freeze, of course, gets away, but we do save the scientists from his victims. Freeze is one of the optional villains. He's actually villain 2 of 3 that we'll have to deal with in the game for a later trophy. And we get our next trophy, To the Victor Go the Spoils, for completing the first stage in the Freeze investigation. And finally, we introduce our last optional villain, Clayface. Though the start of this investigation is rather interesting, as civilians are being attacked by men with no faces. We recognize some of the clay deposits of that of Clayface, though the assumption at the time was that he was dead.
Snap out of it.
I guess not. But then again, this is comic books. Who's ever dead outside of Bruce Wayne's parents and Peter Parker's uncle? In any case, though, we receive our next trophy, something in the clay, for completing the first part of the Clayface investigation. At this point in the story, we've interrogated the Penguin and asked him why, of all the rich and powerful people of Gotham, was he the only one to actually serve time for his crimes. After a bit of a shakedown, he tells us he was just not favored by the Court of Owls and to go to the building known as the Power Club's very on-the-nose name. Well, inside said Powers Club, we find a secret lair for the Court of Owls, which now appears to be very real. After making our way through the lair and fighting a bunch of henchmen, we get trapped as the court is going to punish one of their own. This is where we meet the big bad evil guy, the voice of the court, and this is where the story, for me, started to weaken a little because my ass guessed exactly who was behind the mask the moment I saw him. I won't spoil it yet, but guessing who it was tainted my view of the story a little, but there was still so much potential for the story to go in a very interesting direction, I still had my hopes up at this point.
The court cannot forgive your failure. You will atone with blood.
Don't do this. I won't do anything.
And you, Vermin, do not belong here. The last time an intruder set foot here was more than a century ago. The punishment for this insult remains the same.
With that criticism, though, I do have to say I loved this scene. Pretty dark, had a little grit to it, little bite, and an over-the-top kill room for, it just makes a fun portion of the game. That wasn't until I actually played the kill room, and the hitboxes are whack. I was getting downed by things that I swear didn't even touch me. We escape said kill room and enter a massive Geneva Convention violation, a mass grave, where, outside of the hundreds of skeletons, which we try not to think about, we find a key. We then take said key back to the Belfry, where we go through a short cutscene trying to triangulate the composition of the key to places in Gotham. And, for this, we receive our next trophy, Whispered Words, for completing case file number 2. We can deal with the weird, creepy cult that allegedly controls Gotham later. For now, we turn our attention back to a more immediate threat, Harley Quinn, also known as of right now, Dr. Q. She's set up in the Monarch Theater, and much like an influencer hawking supplements that probably won't do anything, Harley is hawking an implant that'll make you devoid of all inhibitions. So, I guess Harley is doing more for the fake medical community than influencers are, but look, if you want to be devoid of all your inhibitions, we already have something for that. It's called tequila. After several fights, and then being tricked to fall into a trap with a bunch of bombs that we have to defuse, Harley gets away. Again. But we do finally receive our next trophy, Working Hard, or Harley Working, for completing the next stage in the Quinn investigation. Our next miscellaneous trophy is Unstoppable Force for obtaining 4 momentum bars. Momentum is used to pull off multiple different special attacks. You get a momentum bar at levels 5, 10, 15, and 20, but with Nightwing you can get an extra bar early through his tech tree, making this trophy easier to get with him. There are several other side quests and objectives throughout the game, and one of them is to collect a bunch of audio logs Bruce left around the city in special locations that you then have to run a quick time trial for. Complete them all, and you get the Gotham City Confidential Trophy. Back to the story. We find out the court had been able to shut down the construction of a certain tunnel. Why? Well, it's because they were mining for some element called Dionysium. What is that? I don't know, stop asking questions. It's not a right now problem. What is a right now problem, though, is we have now been introduced to a new enemy type, the Talons. These are the undead servants of the Court of Owls, which are now trying to kill us. Oh, also, they have a very annoying trophy at the end, which we'll talk about. We'll get there. After escaping that death pit, we run into Talia al Ghul. Oh, right. I didn't show it, but at the beginning of the game, we actually run into Talia, who burns her father's body in an incinerator and claims to no longer be a part of the League of Assassins. Sure, yeah, I guess that sounds like an absolute lie, but whatever. She's been taunting the Bat family with potential knowledge of the Court of Owls and what they were doing. We finally confront her, who admits the League knew about the court for ages, and tells us that Dionysium is a Lazarus Pit runoff/byproduct that has some reanimation properties, and then tasks us with dealing with the voice of the court, otherwise the League of Assassins would do it and all hell would break loose in Gotham. She also says that the Court of Owls is looking for a Lazarus Pit, one that is most likely somewhere in Gotham, and then goes, okay, bye, and leaves.
And the court's greed and corruption prevent them from ever mastering the secrets of the Lazarus Pit.
We then head back to the Belfry, where we find out a memorial masquerade is being held for the rich and powerful of Gotham in honor of Bruce. Meaning that, yes, the court will also be there. We intend to infiltrate it and collect audio samples of everyone we heard at the Powers Club and match them up with voices at the ball. We also receive our next story trophy, Lock and Key, for completing Case File 3. But again, before we deal with the rich and corrupt, let's deal with the intelligent and insane, that being Harley Quinn. It's time to shut down Dr. Q for good and send Harley back to a cell. We find her at Gotham General Hospital, where she has a bunch of civilians whacked out of their mind with no inhibitions. We then have a very lengthy boss battle where we finally put her away and pass her off to Montoya. This gives us the Universal Healthcare Trophy for finishing the Harley investigation. Continuing our crusade against the villains of Gotham, we finally catch up with Clayface again, who has, as of this point, now fully reformed, though his memory is a little gone. He thinks it's a year back and Batman is still alive. He's trying to make some level of a movie that shows the evils of Batman. I don't know, something like that. We try to tell him that ain't the case and Batman is gonzo, but he's not getting the memo. We fight him and he escapes, because, of course he does. But we get the trophy, the show mud go on, for completing this stage in the Clayface investigation. And for whoever came up with the names for these achievements, bravo, I'm actually loving the puns. The game has multiple combat-related trophies, and we'll get into some of the painful ones later, but they usually have to deal with the larger brute-like enemies. The first trophy we receive is Shock Till They Drop for taking out 45 Regulator Shockers. Evil Shadow Cult of the Rich and Powerful, or Crazy Megalomaniac Who Can Shoot Ice? I'm going to go with the second for now. As we continue the Mr. Freeze investigation, we find ourselves at Quart's laboratory. Apparently, old Mr. Freeze was working or forcing the lab to create a massive freeze beam-like object. Thankfully, behind his back, the lead scientist made a kill switch for whatever device it was Freeze was working on, so we collect that and achieve the Quartzer Life Crisis Trophy, and if you haven't guessed it already, you're probably starting to notice a little bit of a theme here with the optional villains and trophies. Well, let's not dilly-dally with Freeze. He puts his plan into action and starts freezing all of Gotham. It, of course, is then up to us to stop him and the machine, and we do this in a sort of cat-and-mouse fight, where for a little while he's on the ground, and then he jumps up and becomes invulnerable, and blah blah blah. Using the kill switch, we yoink from Quartz Lab, we're able to stop the device and put Freeze on ice. It's okay, I hate myself too. Anyway, we also received the trophy Snow Problem for putting Freeze back where he belongs, behind bars. The game has a lot of recurring challenges, of which you can find in the menu. You have a bunch of contacts throughout the city that give you these challenge/side missions that reward you with materials and EXP. Completing 50 of them awards you the Protector of Gotham trophy. This is really easy. Bulldozed is our next combat trophy, and it comes after we beat up 30 free bulldozers. Again, super easy, you'll get this naturally while playing.
Hit list.
Okay folks, we haven't gotten to the main rant yet with the story, which is timestamped if you want to skip to it, but we are getting pretty damn close to it. So we enter the Masquerade Ball, found a few individuals who are part of the cult, and then realized that the voice is here. We trail the voice into a secret location that's more like a massive staging area for the owls until we finally come across the voice himself. And in what I imagine the devs thought would be a great moment, falls absolutely flat on its face because, as I said earlier, I guessed this basically from the beginning of the game. The voice of the court is Jacob Kane, Bruce's uncle. Oh no, who could have guessed? Seriously, okay, I get the whole rich and powerful and blah blah blah, but they could have done anything else. Hell, if they didn't want to make it a character we had never seen before, make it Lucius Fox, or heck, make it Gordon, who is at this point allegedly dead, but we don't see that, we're just told it. Like, truly, either of those two, you never would have guessed. I don't know, I hate this reveal so much, it's so wasted. And Kane was clearly the caring but actually secretly evil bad guy. You could tell the moment you saw him in the first cutscene at the funeral. Ugh, this whole reveal is worthless. There is no shock value. That's literally nothing to the story. Heck, it would have been better if they just kept him masked. Alright, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. So anyways, the story continues, the conversation happens, and then the League of Assassins shows up and starts creating havoc and murdering pretty much everyone. After a quick cutscene to talk about our next move against either the League or the Court and what to even do, we're awarded with our next story trophy, Bad Apples in Every Orchard, for completing case file number 4.
We updated the board while you were out.
Back to some miscellaneous trophies. Drone You Out is our next combat trophy for defeating 30 Regulator Drone Masters. I disliked this enemy. That is all. The other world side mission, so to speak, was protecting Bruce Wayne's identity. Somehow, on the internet, people were starting to correlate Bruce and Batman, so it's up to the Bat family to sort of place and plant false data on certain servers that would then disseminate the false information. Once you complete each one of these, the trophy Solid Alibi will pop. So the story is getting a little interesting again. Let's look past the terrible storytelling, because maybe, just maybe, they'll claw it back. They won't! But let's pretend. So the court found out the Penguin had helped us find them, and they basically force him into a position to capture us. Pretty standard stuff. We get gassed and wake up in a weird trance-like room thing. I'll save you the 15 minutes or so it took me to go through the whole thing, but it's basically a never-ending torture chamber pumped constantly with gas made to make you hallucinate your guilt, fear, etc. It's really just meant to break you. We escape the labyrinth, and an interesting cutscene plays between the Bat family as they try to figure out what to do. The argument isn't what I care about, though. It's pretty, I'm not going to say cliche, but whatever. No, what I find interesting is the end goal. Serve a warrant to Jacob Kane, take him into custody, and prosecute him. This could turn the story into an incredibly interesting crime drama. So, let's see how it plays out. Oh, and to top it off, we get the trophy from inside Gotham's walls for completing Case File 5.
I can think of at least one still on our side.
Another aspect to the game is gear. You have melee weapons, ranged, and your suit. Each item can come with a certain amount of slots for mods. Fusion Expert is obtained when you fuse to create 50 mods, which, for math purposes, keeping in mind my degree was in political science, requires a total of 200 mods. Certain gear can proc elemental statuses. In Your Element is obtained when you inflict elemental effects on enemies 50 times. Keep in mind you need to fully fill the little wheel above their head for it to count as inflicted. Hey, looks like we aren't quite done with Mr. Freeze after all. See, he broke out of prison again, and was able to not only get his freeze raid back, but now has a walking freezing spider bot. So, I mean, it sucks for us, but it's super cool nonetheless. Now, this seems like it was all part of his plan to an extent, more or less. Well, we finally put the old boy back in the freezer for good, obtaining the cooldown trophy for finishing the Mr. Freeze investigation. It's now time to wrap up all the villain arcs with Clayface. There really wasn't anything special here, it was just a pretty basic fight in general. Now that we finished all 3 villains, though, we'll get 2 more trophies, which I'll talk about here in a second, but let's actually talk about these villains. In comics, they're incredibly interesting, and there really wasn't anything that felt insulting or worthless like the whole Kane reveal. It all just felt bland. Like, they didn't really inject any personality into the characters. They tried a bit with Harley, but ultimately just brought her back to the insane clown lady. I know it was a side mission, but I just feel they could have explored the whole homeopathic influencer thing and instead just went with the safe option. If I were to describe this game as a whole, I would describe it as a safe game. They tried nothing new, the stories they told were bland, and it really didn't make me want to turn on the PC and keep playing. But stubborn be as stubborn is, and I had to get the platinum at this point. Anyways, let's talk trophies. We get the Rock and Hard Place for completing the Clayface investigation, and the End of an Era trophy for completing all 3 villain storylines. Okay, it's now time for my rant. It's this story mission that broke my will to play this game because of just how bland and safe they made the story. Let's catch you up to speed first. So, we obtained a signed warrant for the arrest of Jacob Kane for the murder of Dr. Langstrom. We invade the Kane building and fight our way through it. We come across a new type of talent known as the Huntress, which it becomes a pain in our butt later, but that's, we're not worrying about that. We finally catch Kane. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where I lost my faith in the game. You're leading Kane out, having exposed the Court of Owls. His wife, the commissioner of the GCPD, is telling him to shut his mouth as he's being perp-walked to the car. He's about to be placed in the car when Talia al Ghul kills him with a gosh blessed arrow. God damn it! They really just couldn't let this League thing go, could they? Do you know how cool of a story it would have been if the rest of the game was about taking down the court, as you also have to battle with the politics of the uber-rich being able to control laws in the judicial system? Do you realize the absolute banger of a story they could have made? They could have had Dick Grayson officially take over Wayne Enterprises, and a whole subplot could have been done around Wayne Enterprises having to fight dirty money from the Court of Owls, all while the other 3 are battling with corrupt officials and finding evidence of owl tampering. But no. they decided to go with the let's just kill him and pay attention to the spooky League of Assassins and gosh blessed Lazarus Pit. Yeah, by the way, Talia never actually quit the League. Shocker. She runs it. Double shocker. And this whole time, this whole game has been about looking for a freaking Lazarus Pit. How boring, how bland, how safe. Honestly, I guess I should have expected this from WB. You know, the same company who created the ingenious Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor that was universally beloved and then fucking patented it because anybody else expanding on a great idea means less money for them. Of course, a stingy corporation who actively creates and then discontinues shows just to get a tax break would hate to make a game about the dangers of unchecked monetary power in and around the judicial system. The absolute cowards. Thank goodness this was free on PlayStation at the time of me playing this, honestly. Alright, sorry, rant over. Finishing this mission also gets us the Voiceless Trophy for completing case file number 6. And just so you are aware, yes, the League of Assassins have not left Gotham and are now wreaking havoc in the city. Now, before you ask why I would continue after a rant, it's simple. The Platinum has an under 2% completion, and now it's really just an ego thing. Anyways, our next trophy, Bat Outta Hell, is for completing all the Bat Cycle time trials. Also, very easy. Dress to Impress is another gear-related trophy, and this requires you to craft and equip a legendary item in your suit, melee, and ranged slot. You'll get these blueprints from challenges and crimes, and they can also be randomly dropped. The difficult thing is that you have to have nth metal to actually make it. Our next trophy is Expert Crime Fighter for stopping 250 crimes. Now, I'll be honest, I did not read the PSN guide well. At first I thought it was 250 of the premeditated crimes. No, it's all crimes, including the premeditated ones, but all the super quick ones that just have a white triangle over their heads. So that's my bad. Gotta learn to read for meaning, son. To get the momentum abilities, you have to complete certain challenges. Unlike levels, though, you have to do each challenge with each character. Well, once you obtain all of one character's momentum abilities, you'll receive the trophy A Momentum Occasion. And no, I did not mispronounce that. It's how it's written. I hate it too. Okay, folks, back to the story. We only have 2 more story trophies left. So, after the whole, debacle with Kane, realizing Talia done poofed away, and the League running amok in Gotham, the Bat family is finally able to pinpoint that Talia, or at least the League, has been based out of the old and destroyed Gotham Asylum, Arkham Asylum. We find remnants of Dr. Langstrom's experiments, but aren't really sure what they are yet. And at the top of the asylum, there are a bunch of sound devices with a puzzle that took me, admittedly, longer than it should have to solve. Upon finishing the puzzle, we get to meet our last enemy type, the Man-Bat. Now, this is an interesting take on the Langstrom-Man-Bat kind of duality. In the comics, if you're unaware, Dr. Langstrom actually turns himself into the Man-Bat. In this game, his research helped create League members into said atrocities of nature. Anyways, upon being critically injured by said atrocity of nature, we wake up back in the Belfry, have a nice chat with Alfred, and are awarded the Seeking Asylum trophy for completing Case File 7. Only one left. There are 16 trainings that unlock over time. Once you complete all 16, you get the Practice Makes Perfect trophy. This is another just so incredibly easy trophy. While working on another trophy, the one to defeat 10 Man-Bats, I actually ended up getting another combat-related trophy out of their League. This one requires you to defeat 45 League of Shadows Assassins and 30 League Rocketeers. As the game requires you to go into New Game Plus for a leveling trophy, I highly recommend you obtain this and every other combat trophy before starting New Game Plus. Alright folks, it's time to finish up this story. So, as I said, the whole story was leading up to finding a Lazarus Pit, and somehow, through plot reasons, there's one underneath Gotham, which of course both the League and Court are after. When we get to the pit, who do we see but Talia, resurrecting somebody. Now, who could that somebody be because her father took a nice little bath in fire? Yup, you guessed it. Her beloved Bruce Wayne. Again, maybe this was supposed to be like a wow reveal, but it just wasn't that exciting. Anyway, so we have a little fight with Bruce to try to snap him out of his post-resurrection psychosis, and to our credit, we succeed.
Why don't we get out of here, huh?
Can't leave a job half done.
We can deal with Talia later.
Or you can deal with Talia now. This pretender pulls you away from me. Come back to me, beloved.
I got you.
Yeah. You always do.
This is how it must be!
If you die again, Alfred's gonna kill me! I got this one, Bruce. Okay. We're finishing this now.
For all the hell I gave this game, I do appreciate that scene, especially when you play as Nightwing. I imagine it's different with all the characters, but with Nightwing it just hits different. And the laugh of Bruce/Batman doesn't laugh. And when he does, it's usually because man's about to do something remarkably stupid and or brave. Sometimes both. I do also appreciate Bruce accepting Dick's help, though the man, of course, has his own plans. Anyway, all that's to say, cool scene, and also the Talia fight wasn't awful. Round 1 goes to Grayson, but Talia feels like monologuing.
You got me monologuing!
And for that, the Court of Owls appears with a new voice, and this one is... nobody we know because they never unmask him. Sorry, I'm still hung up on that whole thing. Anyways, there's some threats about blah blah, saving Gotham, blah blah. Talia goes Mega Ultra mode, and round 2 begins. Round 2 ends, as you expect, with Talia being defeated. But before we can actually do anything about it, she magic demon dust poofs away. So that now leaves old Nightwing with the entire horde of the Court of Owls.
I see they wasted zero
Hey, where's Bruce at this point?
Take heart. Your death has purpose. You die, so the court lives forever.
Oh, there he is. Remember how I said when Bruce laughs, he's about to do something really stupid? Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe stupid's not the right word. Very brave. See, if there's one thing that Bruce is, he's moralistic. The man holds on to his beliefs with an iron will, and outside of Jason Todd, Bruce holds the idea that which is dead should stay dead. He knows he died. He knows he was resurrected.
You might want to run.
He could leave and take the mantle of the Batman again, but Bruce is dead. And so for that, he knows he needs to die again. But Bruce is not an easy man to kill, for the only way Bruce died in this game is because he made himself go boom. So what's he do this time as the undead stalkers of the court approach Nightwing? Well, he fires up the Batwing and blows it up, killing him again and sealing the Lazarus Pit forever.
Who hurt the people they're supposed to protect?
You're not gonna get this Lazarus Pit. Because I won't let you.
Yeah, I gotta admit, that was pretty cool. And a nice little speech there, too. You love a good death speech. But with that, and a little follow-up cutscene about how the court's still out there, but the Bat family will protect the people of Gotham, the game ends, and we obtain the trophy, Gotham Knight, for completing Case File 8 and beating the story of Gotham Knights. But dear viewer, we still have some cleanup to do before we get that platinum. Our next trophy, a worthy successor, is obtained after you unlock all the perks in one of the character's knighthood perk tree. I did this with Red Hood because I realized I didn't actually have enough perk points with Nightwing. So, whoops. I mean, I could have, I just needed to level him up to 40, and that requires New Game Plus, and this was easier. Our next combat trophy was a family meeting, which required us to defeat 30 godmothers. I won't lie, I don't know how throughout the whole game I hadn't done this, but I went and used the Heroic Assault free DLC to get this trophy. I then obtained the Man-Bat family trophy for defeating 10 Man-Bats. This trophy is deceptively easy, actually. You fight 5 Man-Bats throughout the story, and the other 5 have 3 stationary spawn locations. So, every night, you just check those 3 locations if they show up, and beat them until the trophy pops. And finally, we're on to the last and my least favorite combat trophy, Talented. This trophy requires you to defeat 75 Feral Talons, 25 Gladiator Talons, and 15 Hunter Talons. Now, the first 2 are easy enough. You'll run into them all the time. It's the Hunter Talons that are the problem. In the story, you fight only 2, leaving you with 13 more that you have to find and fight. They usually don't spawn in more than 1s and 2s, and then they don't necessarily spawn every time. There are a few ways you can go about this. You can either do the Heroic Assault to get to level 26, but for that you'll require a team because it's almost impossible to get to that level solo, or you can brute force it, like what I did. By which, I mean just going around, doing every court crime you can find, resetting the night, and going again until the trophy pops. I haven't really spoken much about them, but there are collectibles in the game. They don't give much outside of some lore or concept art, so we're just going to quickly go through them as we wrap up the video. The first collectible are the murals. There's 12 in total, and you just gotta scan them, and once you get all 12, you get the trophy. The next trophy is Read Owl About It, where you have to find all 43 pages from a book written about the Court of Owls. I would highly recommend the use of a guide as they do not appear anywhere on the map. Honestly, I'd recommend a guide for all the collectibles, because they appear nowhere on the map. This is quickly followed up with Batarang Collector for finding all 63 Batarangs scattered throughout the city. They are easier to locate because of the blue beam they project, but still, guide's your friend. And finally, our last collectibles trophy is History Major for finding all 40 historical plaques found around the city. We now have only one more trophy before the platinum, and it requires us to go into New Game Plus. Our last trophy, He'd Be So Proud of You, requires you to get to level 40. The issue, of course, being the fact that the normal game level is capped at 30, so you have to go into New Game Plus. I'll be honest, and for the record, this isn't necessarily a dig at Gotham Knight specifically, but I've always hated trophies that force you into New Game Plus just for level reasons. I understand if it's for like new story beats or you take a different story path, but just because of a level cap feels unnecessary. So to do this, I really just ran around the city doing everything I possibly could to get as much XP as quickly as possible. And with no introduction necessary, we finally achieved the Platinum Trophy, Heir to the Cowl, for completing Gotham Knights. I'll be honest, folks, this game was so incredibly just disappointing. I could talk about the cookie cutter and mildly clunky combat, or how the graphics were just pretty bleh, but truly, it's the story that did it for me. The amount of just safe story beats and predictability was just so boring. Nothing about the game really excited me as I kept playing. To be perfectly honest, half the reason I did this platinum was to see if it was at all possible. It was being taken off the PS subscription store, and I wanted to see if I could obtain the platinum those 2.5 weeks it had left. So, I mean, I guess I completed the challenge. In any case, though, hopefully next week I'll have Constantine's Adventure episode 12 up, and the next Platinum coming on the channel should be Assassin's Creed Unity. As well, I have several PC achievement games I'm working on simultaneously, so expect those videos up at some point in time. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for slogging through this video with me and for putting up with my rants. I try not to be too negative in my videos, but this felt like a good reason for exception. In any case, thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, as it always helps the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.